was like, no, you need to come up with a better explanation for why you did what you did. Tell me where my mother is and tell me now. Hey you, welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Jenny and I'm a licensed psychotherapist. Is it fair to separate twins or children in general without their knowledge? Well, today we're talking all about the ups and downs that is the parent trap. According to the film Synopsis, twins Annie and Hallie are strangers until a happenstance unites them. The preteen girls' divorced parents Nick and Elizabeth are living on opposite sides of the Atlantic, each with one child. After meeting at camp, American Hallie and British-raised Annie engineer an identity swap, giving both the chance to spend time with the parent they've missed. If the scheme works, it might just make the family whole again. Wow, this movie is a whole roller coaster and I enjoyed every minute of it. Many people talk about how unrealistic that story is and how that could never happen in real life, and I frankly disagree, and let me tell you why. I'm a social worker and I've been a licensed therapist for many years. So I've seen just about any dynamic you can think of. While I haven't seen this particular dynamic anytime during my career, I've seen many different ones. So this doesn't really surprise me. In this breakdown, we're discussing Hallie, Annie, Dad Nick Parker, Mom Elizabeth James, Meredith, Chessie, and more. We're also discussing the step-parent dynamic, parenting decisions, and how this plot is very similar to adoption, maybe? And last, why effective communication can make a world of a difference in your life. If you're interested, please keep on watching. While watching the movie, I realized that when Hallie and Annie met, they were so oblivious. They knew they looked alike, but they didn't really think too much of it, which I found so interesting. As they get to know each other, they find facts that are very similar, like how they enjoy peanut butter with Oreos, how they have the same birth date, and also how they had that same locket. It wasn't until they start really discussing about how they only have the opposite for parents and how they have that similar locket and how they both had just half of a picture that the light bulbs start really kind of going off in their heads.
I have a mother and you only have a father.
I remember watching this movie as a child and really not thinking too much of it either. I was just really entertained by the storyline, which it is a good one. It's interesting for sure. While I was watching the movie, I noticed that they had everything with them. I mean, I understand that they would travel with that picture of the parent they didn't really know well, but they traveled with so much. Did you all notice that too? Okay, so let's get to know the twins. According to the film, Annie is one half of the film's twin duo. She's the identical twin from London with a refined personality and high attention to detail. She leans towards introversion. Her poise and perfectionism are likely shaped by the high standards set by her mother. Hallie is Annie's identical twin sister. She's the identical twin raised in California with a spontaneous, bold, and witty personality. She displays high extroversion, openness, and assertiveness. She plays the rebellious, adaptive child. While the parents kept them apart, they did give both of them something. The locket. It was very sweet and sentimental. After learning about each other, the girls both become very determined and very excited. I'm not going to lie, I would be very excited to find out that I had a twin. Actually, when I was younger, I always thought maybe I had a twin. I don't know why, but I always thought that. I'd be excited too, wouldn't you be? They were so determined that they came up with a plan, an outrageous one, but a great plan nonetheless. And they were going to switch places so that they can get to know their parents.
I'm ready.
This made me a little sad, not going to lie. These girls are so smart, and I mean they were detailed. They were detailed to the haircut, to the earrings. They thought of everything. They were very smart. So like I mentioned before, I compared this scenario the girls experienced to adoption, and let me tell you why. I say this because many adoptees don't remember their birth parent, and they also don't have that connection that one would have. The birth parent will also leave them with a gift at times, which is what I felt like the locket was to the girls. The only difference is that they each had one of the birth parent, just not both. So that's the reason why I couldn't really say it was the same. It was just a comparison. So let's talk about the girls' age. They're 11 years old. Ages 11 to 14 are called early adolescence. While these years are very exciting for young children, it's also a time for rapid change. So many things are happening here. The children grow taller and stronger, but they also start to think in more mature ways. According to parents.com, many 11-year-olds still accept family beliefs and recognize adults as authority figures. This is also the time they begin to question authority. Friendship becomes essential for children around this age. They start to leave the nest a bit. And we see this with Annie and Hallie. They're making their own decisions. They're becoming more and so independent that they make a decision to pierce their ears and fly halfway across the world to meet someone they've never met before. The decision for them to do this makes complete sense when you think about it from a developmental point of view. They even start to question their parents' decision. Why couldn't you guys stay together? And you really need to get back together for the sake of us. I think you all still love each other. I also say that they're questioning their parents' decision based on the scene where Hallie, who's really Annie, is explaining to the father, like, hey, I want to meet my mom. I want to get to know my mom. And the dad's like, well, I already explained it to you. And Hallie, who's really Annie, who I'm going to be calling Hallie Annie going forward, was not buying it. She was like, no, you need to come up with a better explanation for why you did what you did. Tell me where my mother is and tell me now. While also talking about the child's developmental stage, let's talk about Hallie Annie's reaction to the father wanting to share some important news about his relationship status. It's obvious that Hallie Annie is a little bit nervous about this. As you can see, she's on the horse with her father riding and she runs off. They come into the wine cellar and she's running off. She's just not wanting to hear it. And it's completely normal for a child to respond this way. After all, she doesn't know who Meredith is. And she also wants her parents to get back together. Either way, dropping news of a pending marriage while the child has never met this person is huge news. And it makes sense that the child would react this way. So let's talk about what it looks like when the parents and the children reunite. Annie, who's really Hallie, so we'll call her Annie Hallie, was so excited to meet her mother.
Mother.
She was so proud of her mother. She was in awe of her. Seeing her mother take control of that room when she went in for that photo shoot, she was happy. She was delighted. I couldn't have had a better mother is really what she was thinking. And she just wanted to get to know her even more. And the other twin that was with her father was also very happy to be with him. Wow, this is what my life could have looked like if I stayed with you. They were both happy to be there, and they both also wanted to be loved and liked by their respective parent. So the question is, did the parents abandon the girls? Did they abandon the children? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. I can see this reunion going a whole different way. I could see the children feeling angry. I could see the children feeling upset. And this is why I compared them to adoptees, because sometimes this is what adoptees feel. They feel like, you left me all by myself. Why did you give me up? Sometimes adoptees talk about not feeling whole. And this is something Annie and Hallie could really relate to, because they were always wondering, where was the other parent? Being different, not having the other parent in their life. Thinking about this from a parent's perspective, how can you explain this decision to young children? And it's really about sitting down, getting on the child's level and speaking in the way they speak to explain to them why this decision was made and why the other parent is not involved. And it's best that the parents come together to really get on the same page about this explanation. Parents that have decided to give their children up or separate the children at birth often feel like they're doing the best they can for that child. They feel like, hey, I loved you so much, I gave you up. So it's a hard decision and it's a hard experience. It's hard on both sides. Getting back to the movie, why did the parents divorce? I rewatched the movie several times and really couldn't pinpoint exactly why they got a divorce. All I really got was they had both hot tempers. They got into an argument one day. Elizabeth left thinking Nick would follow her. Nick thinking that she wanted to be alone and him not following her. And really, they come to the decision. They don't really go into detail how they came up with the decision and all that. But it was really vague. All I know is that they separated the children. They separated the homes and they moved on with their lives. And I'll have to say, they both had pretty cool careers. She was a wedding gown designer. He owned a vineyard. And these were all dreams that they had while they were together. And they made it happen apart. They both had very cool careers, and I'm wondering how they make this happen in the end. I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Napa or London? I've never been to London, so I can't say, but I would really enjoy living in Napa. It's such a cool area and it's really quiet. Well, the parts I went to, I don't know if it was a tourist trap. I did take a tour bus from San Francisco to get there, so I don't know exactly what it really is like, but the parts I saw, I really enjoyed. As I mentioned earlier, the breakup was really over a lack of communication. And this is exactly why effective communication is so important. Well, you might ask, what is effective communication? Effective communication is using I statements. For example, I feel hurt when instead of you hurt me by. It's making a safe space for expression. Both people have to be able to express themselves without fear. Try to assume without listening. Don't listen to respond, listen to understand. And if you really have something to say while the other person is talking, it's best to write it down. And later you might find that, hey, this didn't really matter, or it did, and you bring it up. So let's talk about Chessie. When her character is introduced, she's excited to see Hallie again, who's really Annie at this point. She's happy to see her. She's cooking up her favorite foods, all that good stuff. But Chessie does something here I think is really inappropriate. She's talking about how she feels like Meredith is taking advantage of Nick, the twins' father, and explaining that she is excited about what Nick has in the bank and not really for who Nick really is. And honestly, I felt like that was inappropriate. You shouldn't be talking about adult business to children, especially not an 11-year-old child. In this instant, Chessie was really using a child to vent. And she really also says, "Don't let me influence you." Hello, an 11-year-old child, they are heavily influenced and they are very impressionable at this time. So really, Meredith never stood a chance. I'm saying this before I find out who she really is, and we'll talk more about that later. When the father introduces her to Meredith, Annie, pretending to be Hallie, really does overhear Meredith lying about an engagement for her father, or really not being a quote-unquote maybe good person in her eyes. And you know how children are. When it comes to lying, since you're teaching them not to lie, they're going to be on everyone. If they catch you lying anything, they're going to be ready to come and check you and let you know that you were foul. And that's exactly what Annie pretending to be Hallie does. So I wonder if Annie pretending to be Hallie would have given Meredith a chance if Chessie never spoke so negatively about Meredith. But who am I kidding? The twins wanted their parents back together, so nothing was going to change their minds about that. But I do feel like her overhearing Meredith's conversation really confirmed for her, hey, Chessie doesn't like this person's a liar, and our parents need to get back together. That's it. And in this instance, you see how Meredith is trying to maybe bond with her, talk with her, and you don't see how Meredith has those ulterior motives till later, but I think she maybe was trying at least to get to know her in this scenario. Unfortunately, it is typical for children to try and sabotage their parents' new relationship with someone different from the other parent, because they do want their parents back together. And in Annie and Hallie's case, they want their parents back together so that way they could live as a family, something they've never been able to experience before. Yes, it's not right, but it makes sense that a child would do this. If you're going to be a step parent, it is important that you understand this and really practice your patience. And you can see the sabotage starting right away. Annie, pretending to be Hallie, starts talking about the different women and his really routine with other women. And the dad comes over and really proves exactly what she's saying. It was too funny. So it's important to understand that this is going to happen. It's your job as the adult to not argue with an 11-year-old child. But it is important to discuss with the parent, hey, this is what's happening. How can we sit down together and talk things through? It can take a while, but children do adapt and they do learn and they do become more understanding as they get older. Were the children mean to Meredith? Yes. Was Meredith mean to the children? Yes. But the only difference here is 2 of them were children. 1 of them was an adult who should have known better. Things go so terribly wrong that Meredith ends up asking the father to choose. He chose the girls. Of course he did. He's the parent. He's not going to abandon his children for a woman. Well, he did abandon one of them, but that's another scenario, I guess. He chose them, and that was appropriate. If he ever wants to move forward with a relationship other than the one with the children's mother, it is important that he sits down and talks to the girls. It's also important that they're not meeting for the first time when they're engaged. They should meet before that. I will say Nick was happy to end that engagement though. But it was a great move on his part to listen to his children. It's important to listen to your children if they don't like your partner or whoever you're dating. But it was like he was allowing the children to really end the relationship for him when he should have been the one to end that relationship, not the girls. He should have been honest and upfront, but I'm wondering if his mind likely changed when he saw Elizabeth James again.
Hello, Liz.
Let's move on to Meredith, Miss Meredith Blake. As you watch her throughout the movie, it could seem that maybe she didn't really want to have any children, or maybe she didn't want his children, which is not really a problem. But I think if you're going to date someone who has children, it might be time to start doing some research, to start understanding children, maybe to really start talking to the other parent to learn them, so that way you can try to get to know them and bond better. But honestly, she wasn't really the nicest person. I mean, ringing the bell to have Chessie come over to bring you a drink. Yes, I understand Chessie works there, but there's a way to treat people with respect. And did you discuss to Chessie that when you ring the bell that she would come? I don't know. I think ringing the bell for someone to come is not really the nicest thing, but there is a way to discuss with someone who works with you. Hey, this is how I'll let you know that I need your help. I can maybe call the phone, whatever it is that you decide. But I think when you're having someone work for you or work with you, it's important that you treat them with dignity and respect. When Meredith goes over to talk to Annie pretending to be Hallie, like, I'm going to give her a reality check. She just got the biggest news dropped on her lap that her father was getting married. I would say give her a little bit of space before you start giving any reality checks. I mean, even if there was a reality check to be given, it shouldn't be the person that she just met maybe an hour ago. She's telling Annie to get over it. As a future step-parent, this is extremely inappropriate. Yes, it's important to have one-on-ones where you get to know the child, but not to give them a reality check. I understand she might feel like the child was not really being kind to her, but it honestly should have been expected. And I'm hoping that the father would have spoken to her about this to say, hey, she might not be the happiest that this is happening. But since we don't know what happened, that's the only thing I could say is, like, I hope that the father said this is how she might have reacted. But who knows what conversation they had. He didn't even tell her he was dating anybody. But did they? I don't think they had cell phones. But I don't remember seeing that the girls had cell phones. So maybe he couldn't have. Either way, they probably should have postponed that engagement announcement. It was too early for that. If you want a blended marriage to work, you really have to sit down, get to know the children, be kind to them, things like that. Being rude to the children just won't help. But I will say later on, I can't imagine how she felt noticing that they were twins.
Hi, Mary. How you doing?
The Hallie was a twin.
No.
He should have told her that he separated the children. I do think that's important. I know she's the villain here in the story, but I do think the father should have spoken to Meredith and let her know that, hey, I do have two girls. They just happen to be separated for whatever reason. He should have had that conversation with her. I don't think that was fair to her to get to know this when Nick was just meeting her parents and the situation was already heightened. Emotions were already heightened then. I do appreciate that Meredith did speak up about things that made her feel uncomfortable. When the twins and their parents were going on that camping trip, she said, hey, I don't feel comfortable with this. And whatever her reasons were, at least she spoke up with herself and communicated exactly how she felt. Through all of her faults, she was certainly direct about this situation. But it didn't really take her long to get back inappropriate behaviors threatening the girls. Yes, the children were pranking her, but again, she is the adult in the situation. She should have spoken to Nick about this. I mean, the girls put her bed in the middle of the water. The girls were putting rocks in her backpack. The girls were doing everything to her. And I could see how upsetting that would be for her. And I will say here, and I don't know if I'm reaching, but I kind of do feel like the father was a little bit aware about what was going on and maybe had made his decision about the relationship, because he really just left her there with them and went on about his way on the trail. He didn't even come back for her. And when she was in the middle of the ocean, she was not having a good time. And I think this is the time where she should have pulled him to the side, or he pulled her to the side, to really talk about it, to see how they could proceed going forward. But honestly, it didn't seem like she had a buy-in into this relation other than maybe financial reasons. And he really thought, oh, she's beautiful, she's young, whatever the case is. Maybe they were both in it for maybe service level reasons, so that way when things started to go sour, they didn't really care. I don't know. This is me just processing and thinking forward. Let me know if you agree with this take in the comments. While I was watching the movie, I noticed that Hallie, pretending to be Annie, was sipping wine, and she's 11 years old here. I don't really remember this memory of her drinking the wine when I watched this movie years ago. This really shows you how different the world was in London and really California, because she knew how to swirl the wine, smell it, and tell you exactly what it tasted like. So I wonder what it was like. I wonder what the laws were like in London and California in the 90s. If you know this, let me know in the comments. I would love to know. Towards the end of the movie, when Elizabeth has realized that the children have been switched and that she is heading to California to switch the children back, or get her man back, she was so nervous. She was smoking, and
I can't handle this. I mean, look at me, Martin. Have you ever seen me like this?
In the beginning of this movie, you see this poised, well put together lady, but here you're seeing her. She's smoking, she's nervous, she's not having a good time. She's extremely nervous to see Nick Parker again. She was also seeking reassurance from her daughter. She really could have benefited from learning some grounding techniques and also processing this trip with a licensed professional. Because what is the child going to tell her? The child wants her to get back with her father, so it's going to be nothing but biased responses. Again, she wasn't coping very well. She was drunk on the plane, drunk on arrival. I guess it was great that Martin was there being so helpful with her. She was basically having a breakdown getting ready to see Nick Parker.
Hey, Parker! Oh, don't do this to me. I'm already seeing double.
Now, is this behavior appropriate? While it's not the most appropriate way to express your feelings, by drinking, by smoking and all that, it's not the best way to cope, but it's important that children do see that adults have emotions just like them. While she's not coping the best with them, it's good to see that they do have those same emotions. But after this whole scenario happens, it's really extremely important for them to really sit down and discuss what happened. Hey, mommy wasn't coping well with this because of what? This is a better alternative to cope. And this is why I mentioned that she should have probably learned some grounding techniques and also processed this with a licensed therapist, so that way she's able to make better coping decisions. And she would have had all her therapeutic tools ready for use. Because guess what? Children learn by watching you do, not what you're saying. But we all are human and we all make mistakes. And you can definitely talk this through with children. I will say, however, it was evident that the parents, Nick and Elizabeth, had some sort of maybe feelings towards each other. Nick was collecting the wine that they drank at their wedding. He collected all of them. And you could see how nervous Elizabeth was by making poor decisions like drinking on a plane. I think that's illegal. I think that's something that could get you taken off a flight, though. Let me know in the comments if that is. I do think it is. I found the children to be very sweet, very smart, set recreating their first meeting on the boat, making them have dinner and all that. It was very sweet. In the end, when Annie and her mother leave for London, so do Hallie and Nick. Nick was like, I'm not going to make this mistake again. You wanted me to follow you and run after you, and I didn't before because I thought this is what you wanted. But I won't let that happen again. And I thought that was so sweet. But if we had used effective communication, we would have never been here. But then also we wouldn't have had this really funny and witty movie. So the end was cute. The girls got what they wanted. Martin and Chessie got engaged. Grandfather was happy. The parents were happy. Everyone was happy. Well, except Meredith Blake. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you. As always, if you're interested, please do me a favor. Like, comment, subscribe, and turn on your post notifications. That would really help me out. Also, if you have any movie recommendations, please let me know in the comments below. I really enjoy breaking these movies down. It really takes me back to graduate school. We would do this all the time. I look forward to hearing from you in the comments. Bye now.